Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the most anticipated buff in the entire Master League this season, and that is Shadow Claw being given to Marshadow. Now, these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community and fellow content creator Schmeedy PvP, so many thanks for the battle submission. Marshadow at long last gets a strong same type attack bonus fast move with Shadow Claw, and in my eyes, that should potentially make Marshadow into a pretty interesting generalist. With Shadow Claw, Ice Punch, and Close Combat, Marshadow will have a lot of coverage into the vast majority of the Master League meta. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in Game 1, Marshadow picks up a pretty decent lead, leading Marshadow into Kyurem White. Kyurem White does have incredibly fast pacing courtesy of Dragon Breath. Marshadow, gonna think about it, no shields, calls the Fusion Flare, that does a lot of damage, but Marshadow is able to hang on and farm up to the Ice Punch plus Close Combat double up. Ice Punch bait into the Kyurem does get the shield. Marshadow now gets the Close Combat. The opponent's going to have to give up the Kyurem or both shields. They no shield. Close Combat takes the knockout. Marshadow winning switch advantage and shield advantage. In comes Palkia, and that's swiftly going to be answered with Zacian. Now, Zacian doesn't honestly have the most comfortable matchup ever into the Dragons, even against Palkia. Your fast move is resisted, and it takes a lot of Metal Claws to eventually put it into close combat range. But being up a shield means that Zacian should be in a very good spot. Zacian's going to absorb back-to-back Aqua Tails, farm up to the back-to-back close combats, but opting for the Behemoth Blade, not wanting to debuff its defense. Behemoth Blade does do less than close combat. Close combat I don't think would have quite knocked out either, so either way, 2 charge attacks would need to be thrown. And a shield comes up from the Palkia, opponent really investing in their Palkia, but they are down 2 shields to 0, and that's going to set up Landorus. In comes Landorus, immediately pressure from the Palkia as they fire off the Aqua Tail. With 2 shields to hide behind, this feels like a pretty good spot for the Landorus. Landorus fires off the Sandsear Storm. That's going to be the end of Palkia. And now Landorus just has to win the 1-0s against whatever's in the back. And it definitely can do that, as it's their own Zacian in the back. There's just no path forward for the opponent in this game. Landorus spams out the Sandsear Storm. These Metal Claws are shredding through the Landorus' health bar. Opponent tries to go for the CMP tie, but Schmeedy's just going to overfarm. Opponent baits with a close combat, and it looks like Schmeedy's going for the bad manners Stone Edge. Not even going to charge all the bubbles. Stone Edge may be resisted, but it takes down the Zacian, and that's a Game 1 win. Hopping into Game number 2, picking up a bit of a tricky lead, leading Marshadow into Metagross. The safe switch into Landorus is going to be answered with Palkia. Landorus does have faster pacing this season, but losing the fast move pressure from Mudshot, I think, does mean that Landorus overall is not too improved compared to where it was. Landorus will be putting up the shield as Palkia goes for the Aqua Tail, going for another Sandsear Storm, but because Mudshot now does less damage this season, a second Sandsear will actually not set up a farm down for Landorus before Palkia makes another Aqua Tail. So this matchup somehow ends up feeling a little bit worse. Palkia Spatial Rends, it does not take the knockout, but the opponent brings back in the Metagross, and that is very, very good, because Metagross is going to take huge damage from the Sandsear Storm. Aggressive pivot into Marshadow. Marshadow winning charge attack priority with the Ice Punch over Metagross' Meteor Mash. Ice Punch will be taking the knockout. They're going to try and sweep with Zacian in the back. And it does make sense why they had to bring in the Metagross now, considering that they were AVA Steel, so they were very, very soft to the Landorus. The Shadow Claws are adding up quite a bit, so Marshadow should be able to shield, fire off the close combat to force the final shield, and then just send in Zacian, and Zacian will be able to take the win. Marshadow farming up, oh, trying for the fancy play, and that may have just cost this game. In comes Zacian, but the bad news is the opposing Zacian will win charge attack priority over the Marshadow. So if the Zacian can land a Behemoth Blade and farm down, then unfortunately this game is lost. It looks like they're going to do just that, but no, they make a critical error. They do not commit to the farm down. That's going to cost them everything. They throw the close combat. Marshadow farms down. That got very, very dicey for a second, but luckily will end in a win. Marshadow versus Zacian in the next match. Immediate safe switch into Landorus. Landorus not going to be answered with anything. Opponent's just going to stay on the field, and they're going to have to respect the Sandsear or lose the vast majority of their hit bar. They end up taking a ton of damage and then sending in Zygarde, but they have really decent switch timers, and they took massive damage onto that Zacian. So overall, I feel like that really did not work out for the opponent. Maybe banking energy and a catch onto the Zygarde would have worked better, because now the switch clock is up, and in comes Marshadow. Marshadow has access to double super effective Ice Punch, and Ice Punch, even though it's not the strongest move ever, is still double super effective, so that's going to do quite a lot of damage onto the Zygarde. Outrage is going to hurt. Zygarde actually goes for a Bulldoze, fishing for a debuff, and they actually get it. In the back is Primarina, and Marshadow is just going to fire off the Close Combat just to try and lower its defense as quickly as possible. Close Combat does huge resisted damage because Primarina is absolutely terrible, and now in comes Zacian. Oh my goodness, and the catch onto the Landorus, able to absorb that energy. Now it's going to be Zacian having to try and 1v3. Opponent still has not lost a single Pokemon, but Zacian is all that's left. Shield comes up on the Hydro Cannon. Back in comes the Zacian. Zacian firing off energy. Shield comes up. But as they go for the Behemoth Blade, I think they're not going to make another move. Had they gone for the Close Combat, then they would have been debuffed and they would have been Metal Clawed down as well. So I think the opponent was kind of in a tough spot by throwing instantly. Back in comes the Zygarde. Can Zacian get the farm down here before 2 Bulldozes are reached? The opponent has revealed they're running not a great moveset for the Master League. You don't want to run Bulldoze. They do get the Bulldoze debuff. There's the switch into the Primarina, and Zacian's going to do it. Zacian pulls off the 1v3 sweep to somehow escape with the win. Tough lead in the next match, leading Marshadow into Xerneas. Immediate save switch into the Landorus. Landorus will outpace. Opponent banks energy and sends in Lunala. But they give Landorus a pretty massive energy head start. I assume with that energy head start, Landorus should be able to flip switch with ease, and then the Xerneas is going to be stuck onto the Zacian in the endgame. Back-to-back Sandsear Storms connect onto Lunala, and just like that, Lunala is suddenly very low. This is a -2 Shadow Ball. Landorus will put up the shield. Landorus really trying to invest in switch advantage, and now this Lunala is about to be -3 if they put up the shield. And they are going to try and fight for switch advantage. Shield does come up, but a -3 Shadow Ball, this is just simply not knocking out Landorus. I know Landorus is pretty classy, but Landorus will hang on, make it to a 4th Sandsear Storm. The pacing on Landorus very, very quick. Lunala is going to put up the shield and get a farm down, but they exit at -4. They basically can't do any damage now. They're 4 stages debuffed. In comes Zacian. That does absolutely nothing, and shield advantage at the very least has been won. In comes Palkia, and this is where things could get a little bit tricky. Zacian farming up. There's a switch into Marshadow, answered with the Xerneas, but the Xerneas has such an energy lead, and the Palkia has a ton of energy as well. So I really don't see a way to win this game because the Palkia is outside of close combat range. If it was in close combat range, then maybe there would be a chance, but unfortunately, I think this game is going to end in defeat. Zacian forced to take the knockout here, not letting Xerneas make it to the close combat, but now Palkia can just completely overwhelm with triple Aqua Tail. Zacian's gonna no shield. They're actually on Fire Blast, so no Aqua Tail to be seen, but either way, even if they had Aqua Tail, that game was probably still going to be a loss. Marshadow into Reshiram in the next match, insta-save switch into Landorus. Landorus will be able to outpace by 1 singular turn, making the Sandsear right before the Fusion Flare is available. Sandsear's no-shielded opponent immediately fires off the Fusion Flare. Landorus will be able to survive here. Oh, they actually go for a crunch. They're fishing for a debuff. That feels like a very greedy crunch from the opponent there. Now the opponent will send in a Dragon Tail Kyurem Black, and they put up the shield as Landorus goes for the Sandsear Storm bait. Because they're on Dragon Tail, they already have enough energy for the Freeze Shock. No shield from the Landorus, it gets KO'd, but now in comes Zacian. Zacian can use this opportunity as a bit of a springboard to get a massive energy head start. The Kyurem Black is debuffed, which means Fusion Bolt will no longer two-shot. They're going to pivot out, resetting the debuff as they send in Reshiram. Reshiram answered with Marshadow. Fusion Flare definitely going to hurt. This opponent is addicted to crunch debuffs. They keep throwing the crunch for absolutely no reason. They keep not getting the debuff, so that play just ends up being a strict tactical error. Back in comes the Kyurem. Ice Punch bait for the Marshadow, fishing for the shield, but Kyurem does not fall for it. Kyurem not going to be shielding, and that's going to force Marshadow to fire off another Ice Punch. This Ice Punch will be taking the knockout. What's in the back? It's going to be Zacian, and this is going to be a win, because Marshadow will make the close combat, and there's a ton of energy available on the Zacian. Close combat lands, in comes Zacian. Zacian gets the farm up to the back-to-back close combats, and that is going to be all she wrote in this one. Close combat is shielded, opponent still trying to play it out. I guess they misremembered the energy on the Zacian, but Zacian did have the back-to-back. Close combat takes the knockout and secures the win. We move to the next match, Marshadow into a Groudon. Now this is a bit of a scary matchup. It's actually a Dragon Tail Groudon, so Groudon's still running the old moveset, and the Groudon didn't even build up to the Precipice Blades. They're just going for a Fire Punch right off the bat. Fire Punch, I mean, that's just going to do absolutely nothing. Opponent now sends in a Dragon Tail Kyurem Black, and you cannot switch that into a loaded Marshadow. Marshadow fires off the close combat, it connects, and down goes Kyurem Black. I think switch locking the Zacian is a bit of a risk, considering that the Kyurem did not have access yet to a Fusion Bolt. So Marshadow could have stayed in, Shadow Claw down, and then switch advantage would have been preserved. Whereas now, things could get a little bit dicey. Zacian ends up shielding up a Fire Punch, returning fire with the Behemoth Blade, and the opponent throws on Alignment. So this can only be a Fire Punch, and this is a pretty safe no shield. Now Zacian can look to farm up. Zacian can even go for the charge attack priority tide because Zacian is pretty much going to be winning charge attack priority over everything you will encounter in the Master League. Close combat is going to be double shielded. What do they have in the back that is this weak to Zacian? Fire Punch takes the knockout, in comes Landorus, and it's Palkia. I guess that does make a little bit of sense, but at this point this game is over. There's a ton of energy loaded on the Marshadow, so Sandsear Storm into the close combat should be enough to win this game. Landorus is going to put up the shield as Palkia goes for the Aqua Tail. Landorus going to be staying in. There's the switch at the last second into Marshadow, firing off the close combat. Close combat into the Palkia is going to be taking the knockout. All that's left in the back is the Groudon. Groudon does not get the farm down, and Marshadow is going to take the win. So the opponent very, very scared of Zacian in the back, but the loaded energy on Marshadow is just pretty universally strong, and that was enough to get the win. Neutral lead in the next match, Marshadow into Palkia. I imagine this matchup is very bait dependent. If you're able to successfully shield a Spatial Rend, you're in an okay spot. But if you get Aqua Tail baited like what happened here, things could get a little bit tricky. Opponent tries for a close combat catch onto their own Marshadow, but they are unsuccessful. Instead, they're going to be chipped with the Ice Punch. Marshadow farms up, and there should be an Ice Punch catch right there onto the Zacian. Very nice play. Ice Punch really not going to do much, but I imagine a close combat, it does get same type attack bonus on Marshadow, is going to inflict massive damage onto the Zacian, so Zacian will be forced to put up a shield. There's the close combat. Zacian does get the farm down, but down 2 shields to 0 in the Master League is always a bit tough. And oh my goodness, the read! The opponent tried for a peekaboo play to catch a close combat onto Dawn Wings, but instead they get absolutely shredded by a Behemoth Blade and then farmed all the way down by Marshadow. Back in comes the Palkia. Marshadow at the back-to-back close combats. First one is going to be shielded. There's the second one locked and loaded. And just like that, the opponent's play to go for the peekaboo absolutely backfires. Palkia does exit with quite a lot of energy. In comes Landorus. Landorus, however, does not get one shot by an Aqua Tail. And that fact is going to be pivotal because that means that Palkia is going to have to throw energy again. They have to waste back-to-back Aqua Tails to KO the Landorus, and then Zacian should be one off the move. Back in comes Zacian. There's the close combat, locked and loaded. And after all that, things could have got a bit scary if the opponent caught the close combat, but they ended up catching a Behemoth Blade, and that was a win. We see an absolute blast from the past in the next match, Marshadow leading into Tapu Bulu. I haven't seen a Tapu Bulu in ages. Unfortunately, the fact that Zacian exists kind of completely renders Tapu Bulu useless. I really liked Tapu Bulu back in the day, but unfortunately, time and power creep has not been kind to it. Ice Punch does do huge damage. It would have been very close as to whether 2 Shadow Claws KO'd there, so Marshadow just going to play it safe and fire off the Ice Punch. Unfortunately, Bulu is going to shield, so the Nature's Madness will be caught onto the Zacian, but the opponent should have a very strong answer to Zacian in the back, and it turns out they actually don't. They send in Lunala. Lunala makes a ton of energy, makes a catch onto Zygarde, but I don't think Zygarde is going to have a particularly good matchup here. Zygarde is going to have to full send an Earthquake, and they're going to exit this matchup with basically no energy and with a lot of HP lost because Zacian now makes the close combat. There's Zygarde firing off energy, immediate no shield from the Zacian. Zacian put in so much work, and now in comes Marshadow. Oh, Marshadow gonna look for the full Shadow Claw farm down here. Oh, just can't quite get it. Zygarde always too bulky, and that's gonna force an Ice Punch from Marshadow. The Marshadow takes the KO. Back in comes Lunala. Lunala does have quite a bit of stored energy, but they just simply can't even beat the Marshadow. I don't think they're even going to be able to see the Landorus, and they know it as well, as they're going to resign the match. Hopping into the final match, picking up what I imagine to be a bit of a tricky lead, leading Marshadow into Reshiram. Reshiram is just so insanely consistent in neutral matchups that Fusion Flare is probably going to do huge damage here to the Marshadow, and it does. Marshadow gets the back-to-back Ice Punches, but going to be full sending Close Combat. Close Combat does get shielded. There's going to be the pivot out into Landorus. It appears the opponent does not have a strong answer to Landorus, as they're going to be staying on the field with Reshiram and firing off energy. Neutralizing this Pokemon will be very, very important because the Zacian cannot afford to see it, and unfortunately a miscount means that Landorus is forced to go down both shields. Landorus is going to farm up as much energy as possible before firing off the Sandsear. Sandsear going to go for an undercharge that will still take the knockout, and the opponent now sends in a Kyurem White. This is the Dragon Breath Kyurem White. Stone Edge will be super effective, so the shield does come up. Landorus could maybe try for a catch here, but no, unfortunately unable to get it. The opponent running ABA Fusion Flare, and that will secure the KO. it's going to be up to Zacian to try and take home the win. There's a switch into the Marshadow, and what a catch. Didn't get the catch the first time, but the redemption, getting the catch the second time. And now Zacian's going to have to manage energy very, very carefully. Zacian farms up. Oh no, goes for the Behemoth Blade, but there's going to be a catch onto the Zekrom. If Zacian wants an opportunity to win this game, it's going to be by building up to the back-to-back close combats. Zekrom fires off the Fusion Bolt. Zacian not in any danger of being knocked out here. Zacian gonna farm up to the back-to-back, winning charge attack priority over that Zekrom, and that's gonna be a win. Close combat number 1 takes down the Zekrom. Close combat number 2 is gonna be taking down Kira White as close as it can get, but Zacian takes the win. And now some final thoughts on Shadowclaw Marshadow and its viability in this new Master League meta. When the season started, a lot of people were blown away by the Shadowclaw Marshadow 2-shield sims. In the 2-shield, if you go to PvPoke right now, as I accidentally drop a pen while I'm recording, so if you heard a sound, that's what that was. I'm keeping this in, by the way. I'm not editing this out. But as you go to PvPoke and take a look at Shadowclaw Marshadow in the 2s, I believe it is something like a 75% win rate. So everyone was expecting it was going to be this OP meta wrecker that kind of destroyed everything. But anytime you're running a Pokemon that does have a very powerful nuke move and a cheaper bait move, there's going to be a lot of like sim warrior behavior. Whereas if you took off perfect baits, that win rate looked a lot more normal in around 50%. And after seeing Marshadow in action, I think Marshadow, where it thrives best is it feels like it is a very neutral mon. It doesn't really feel like Marshadow has too many catastrophic matchups. Even against fairy types like Xerneas, due to Shadowclaw being able to hit for neutral damage, Marshadow at least has the ability to fight back, and like in a 2-shield scenario for example, it can probably overwhelm things with its pretty fast pacing and manage to take wins. However, I do think that since it is pretty neutral, it also has a lot of times where it just doesn't really do a lot of things super well. Like, it doesn't really have a ton of very dominant matchups, whereas some of the more neutral Pokemon like Xerneas, Reshiram, Zekrom, they're all going to have certain matchups where they do feel very dominant, and I feel like that's an area where Marshadow might feel a little bit lacking. So I do think Marshadow, it's definitely improved, and I think it is a very playable Pokemon. I think I'd probably put it as around like a B-tier Master League mod, where you can definitely run Marshadow, and you can definitely get some wins, but if you take a look at those 2-shield matchups, and you see like a 70+% win rate, and you're expecting it to be a meta wrecker, I don't think it is a meta wrecker by any means, but I do think it's definitely improved, and its viability as far as the Master League is dramatically increased. So overall, I am pretty happy with this move update. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.